Live from their home studios, please welcome the hosts of Top 5, Jason, John, Peter, and Boo. Well, we're missing one of those this time around. I often do it live because I think it's, I don't know, kind of funny that the live from intro is recording. So live from our home studios, welcome to DevCentral's Top 5. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We live stream every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. We like to have fun conversations about technology. We also have a number of other series out there like our Lightboard lessons and 90 seconds of security and real attack stories. So if that piques your interest, maybe hit that subscribe button and give us a try. Good morning out there, Josh. And let me bring on my co-hosts for today. We got my good buddy Boo and my good buddy Jason. What's happening, fellas?
Hello, hello. Good to see you.
Hello, hello. You know, we had a, sorry, I didn't even let you say good morning, Boo.
Good morning.
There you go. Well, we just got off a nice 3-day weekend, and I was considering, asking you guys what you did, maybe had some fun over the 3-day weekend. But then this morning on my walk, it occurred to me that this is probably one of the coolest dates of the decade because it's a palindrome date. Today is 2/22/22. So a whole bunch of twos in there. Any feelings about that, fellas?
I do. Well, outside of the United States, Boo, in Canada, do you guys do day, month, year like in Europe, or are you guys day, month, year as well?
I think it is actually. Yeah, I can't remember. I should know that. I prefer year, month, day.
Like the ANSI standard dating, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually in the United States, it's palindrome week. So 2/20/22 through 2/28/22. Of course, in Europe, they only get the 1 day today because they do the day, month, year, which makes more sense than how we do it. It's month, day, year, because it's like, whoa, why are you putting the one that changes more often right there in the middle? But the U.S. got to be the U.S., right?
Yeah, for some reason, right?
Well, I thought about that with Wordle too. There was one of the recent Wordle answers was color, I believe, with no U in there, and that just threw me off. I barely got that one.
The oldie shoppy, you would have gotten that. Well, we generally have a topic for top 5, so let me spin the wheel and see what comes up. Tick, 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 tick. What do you know? It's wild card week. So generally on top 5, ladies and gentlemen, we count down some of the top stories that have caught our attention over the last month. Sometimes we have a theme, but since we've had so much going on over the last couple of weeks, we've had the release of the new DevCentral community website at community.f5.com. All last week was F5 Agility, our premier user, customer, partner event where we announced the new F5 distributed cloud. And so we also have the F5 Labs application protection report that came out last week. So we have a whole bunch of stuff to cover this week. So that's why it's wild card month. If it's the 4th Tuesday, then it's top 5. So what do you think, fellas? Should we just get right into it?
Let's get moving.
Cool.
Number 5.
Alrighty, so I guess I'm up first here, or with number 5. This week, I wanted to actually highlight something from our Crowdsource on DevCentral. So like Peter mentioned, we've got our new community.f5.com platform now. Super awesome. Like I find it way more intuitive to interact on there. And one of the pieces on there is the Crowdsource. So just for navigation purposes, I just want to show everybody, if you go under articles and you will see Crowdsource under here. Crowdsource is where people can submit things that they think would be helpful to the entire community. This is as opposed to going to technical forums and asking about stuff on the technical forums. So if you have something to submit, check it out check out Crowdsource, or if you're Googling stuff and finding stuff that leads you back to DevCentral. One of the things that was submitted on there is this article here by Pedro Rory. I believe he is in Brazil, and he put together this step-by-step guide for how to build a AWAF, F5 AWAF lab environment on GCP, Google Cloud Platform. It's simply a link that goes over to a GitHub repo, actually, because he's got everything all documented in here. What I found really cool about this, though, is that we've talked about this before. We have a lot of abstraction that we can do nowadays. Like this here in particular, we could do this on Terraform quite simply without actually walking people through step by step. We could actually say, hey, fill out these variables and then just run a Terraform apply, and you've got your lab up and running. But what Pedro did here was he did kind of go through the actual G-Cloud steps. So for folks who are not familiar, G-Cloud is the CLI that you can use to configure Google Cloud Platform. And so he went through and he kind of documented all the pieces and told, step by step, kind of told you what all the different commands do. So not only do you learn about F5 AWAF through going through a lab, but through building using his steps, you're actually learning Google Cloud Platform at the same time, which I think is important. We're looking at multi-cloud nowadays, and we want to be able to spin up clouds very quickly. But when it comes down to troubleshooting, if you didn't know all the steps that were actually put into place to build that cloud that you're running your compute on, and you have it a little bit too abstracted, then it might make it difficult for you to troubleshoot. So I thought this was really cool. He went through and documented everything, made it really easy for folks to kind of follow along, understand what's going on, and at the end of it, you'll have your lab so that you can run your hackathon. Is what he actually has, I think 3 or 4 different vulnerable apps on there that you can run. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool and nice of him to share.
Yeah, I love a good lab, and especially like you're saying, putting it in a place that's not just on your desktop and having something new. Maybe you haven't seen Google Compute, and like we talked last week at Agility about, it's one thing to say, give me a hamburger, but the way Burger King builds hamburgers and McDonald's build hamburgers and Red Robin builds hamburgers, the ingredients might all be the same, but the way they put them together is different. The way they season them is different. That's the same with AWS or Google or Azure or any other Alibaba, any other public cloud, private cloud. And so the more recipes you have on how to do something like deploy advanced WAF, the better. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we've also kind of talked about how as network engineers or just other folks from old school try to move into this new world of cloud and automation and those kinds of tools. Just, you definitely have to learn some new tips and tricks along the way as technology advances. One of the I often thought maybe we should do like a YouTube comments live stream one of these times, do like a what do they call them, reaction videos,
the mean tweets.
To our YouTube comments. But one of the comments someone asked just over the weekend, I believe, and maybe Boo, one of the things that a lot of engineers look forward to during Agility was the labs. We didn't have them this week, but I know they're scheduled for sometime in the future. Isn't that right?
Yeah, over in June, they're putting them together now, and there's a lot of really good labs. They're all going to get, the ones that are carried forward. There's a number that are always carried forward every year, and they're going to get refreshed to whatever the latest versions are, adding new things or removing things that aren't necessary anymore. But I know in North America that I believe is the second week of June, and I believe it's going to be theater-specific dates as well. So people from other time zones don't have to all attend the North American times for this. So look out for that. But yeah, that's coming up in June.
Yep. So we'll definitely highlight that. I just wanted to make sure we got that out there since that comment came up over the weekend. So,
yep.
Sweet. Shall we move on to number 4?
We shall.
Number 4.
All right. With number 4, I have the OWASP Top 10 Lightboard series that John, on his way out the door, finished up. And so if you're a fan of the Lightboard series that he did way back in the day, I think of the 2017 version of OWASP, and, it was a very successful Lightboard series, got a lot of traction. And, before he moved on, he refreshed for the 2021 Top 10. And, we've had shows about the OWASP Top 10 itself, and the maybe a little bit of confusion around are these vulnerabilities, are they categories, what exactly is this? And so he breaks all that down with an overview first, and then goes into each one of the top 10 that they have declared for that series. So that is something you're not going to want to miss. You get a lot of John if you're missing him like we are, and you get a lot of good information as well. So that is something you definitely want to check out if that was not on your radar.
Absolutely.
And they're a great job with those.
Yeah, it really breaks them down, gets into the exact vulnerability, the techniques that are used, whether it's just an actual technique to bypass or just something that's open that you need to sneak by with, and certainly some mitigation techniques these days. But that list is kind of not transformed, I should say, over the years. And I know this time around they took a lot of input from various entities around to then create and generate this list.
Yeah, when we did the OWASP Top 10 with Stam Stepaniak on DevCentral Connects, it was really cool to see, because he shared a chart of its progression over time, and you'd see kind of the flow diagram of where things like SQL injection and broken authentication and all that, where it moved over time with the with the list as it was released. So if you haven't watched that show, go check that out.
Great episode. Now, they also, just so for people's knowledge, they have the OWASP Top 10 actually has a number of lists. I don't have them offhand, but they have the top 10 vulnerabilities list. But they also have, I believe, a mobile list of vulnerabilities, and there's, I think, 1 or 2 others that go into specific technologies. So it's not just that OWASP Top 10 that they put out. Whether it's, I know it's every couple of years with those sorts of lists. So,
oh yeah, they have all kinds of top 10 lists. They also have all kinds of tools and training. And I know that there's a list for developers that's not just, hey, this is vulnerable, this is why, but actually, hey, when you're thinking about building web apps, these are the kind of things that you want to make sure you're doing. So it's on the preventative side of the vulnerabilities that ultimately happen.
Yeah, and I appreciate you pulling up my article, Jason. That's pretty cool of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why was that not on your list, Mr. Peter Silva?
Oh, I don't know. I got something else to talk about. But before we do that and hit our middle story, we just want to give a shout out to Josh, who said, hey, right when we opened up today. We haven't forgotten about you, Josh. It's really good to see you and all of our regulars every single week. So if you are one of our regulars, maybe pop in another hey, and we can give you a shout out if you want a shout out, of course. But I'm going to give a shout out to Boo and Jason just because I love them.
We are.
Unfortunately, no prize patrol today, but hey,
yeah.
You still get
I know,
the.
I almost queued up my prize light just in case. It is not queued.
Well, doop, doop, doop. Moving on to number
3.
Number 3 is me. Oh, I forgot to let's see. Oh, yeah, push to stream. I guess it's in the stream now. So we talked about this a couple briefly, I think was last week during one of our live streams, and this is also a what do they call that? Oh, foreshadowing in storytelling. Just a sneak peek not next Tuesday, because next Tuesday's Boo's show, but the following Tuesday, March 8th, for Security Sidebar. I'm going to have one of the authors, Sander Vinberg, on to really get deep into the 2022 Application Protection Report from our F5 Labs Threat Intelligence team. If you're not familiar with F5 Labs, they're sort of an independent, research arm. They gather up data, both internal and working with partners of ours to get data, and then kind of dig into the data and tell stories about the data that they're seeing as it pertains to breaches and threats and vulnerabilities. They do this report once a year. It takes them about, maybe 6 to 8 months to get this going. It's a fairly long and detailed report, so I highly recommend just kind of going. You can just go to f5labs.com. It'll resolve to f5.com/labs, but just kind of to show some of the incidents. They also, as you can see here, kind of get into time frames and how different types of breaches or characteristics of breaches change over time, increase, decrease, and maybe give some idea about why those things are happening. This is one of the ones I found kind of interesting. You can see here that, access types of breaches. And so we're talking about things like credential stuffing attacks and phishing and guessing passwords. Those kinds of things account for a quarter of the data breaches that they analyzed for 2021. And then, right behind that is malware. And so maybe some of those access links or phishing pieces that you clicked on, maybe installed some malware, maybe that malicious link sent you to a fake website with a certificate and HTTPS, and you got duped into entering your credentials for that. So those two are kind of the top of the list. So maybe it's one of those things that you kind of keep an eye out for those two kinds of things. But you can even see here, you'd think like the what was it? The Colonial, that supply chain attack from Colonial a few months ago, gigantic, huge. But when it comes down to it, it's, literally maybe like 12, 13% of all the breaches out there. And I guess how that impacts me, or how I see that is, so you think about the Colonial thing and it was massive, but in the whole grand scheme of things, it's kind of tiny compared to, say, the access and the malware things, which kind of tells me like, holy cow, like if that huge attack was only like this little circle of all the attacks, then these two others just must, tear people apart. But so the application protection report, they get into, as you can see, industries, obviously finance, insurance, healthcare are typically the top sectors that are hit. Educational services came in fourth. It's interesting about that is just that first month, I believe in 2020, the first months that schools went on lockdown when the pandemic started, into educational services got hit really high. So, anytime there's one of these things in society, the bad guys go after the most vulnerable. But you can see tons of graphs and analysis. This is another cool one where they kind of track how these types of attacks flow through the system, and then the types of things that happen at places along the system. It's pretty cool. But I guess the the moral of the story, or to make a long story short, which is kind of too late by this point. They always say that on Reddit, make a long story short, too late, is that you should not only protect all of, inspect, protect, have a firewall, have something in place to inspect all of your inbound traffic, but just as important is to have some sort of inspection for outbound traffic, that kind of data that potentially could be exfiltrated, and you really don't want that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I love a good graph like that. In fact, that visualization is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love to watch how things flow through. And it was the one I was mentioning with the OWASP top 10 overtime looked a lot like that one.
Yep.
And I heard a crazy story, speaking of the Colonial Pipeline and the impact it has on infrastructure. That's, in that case, it was, okay, people can't find gas. And my son was impacted by that as well, because he's out in school on the East Coast where that happened. But I heard a story yesterday or the day before. They were talking about there was a water treatment plant down in Florida that was attacked, and they had actually gone in and adjusted the recipe for how the treatment was done, and they had increased the lye to the point to where, if that would have actually made it out of QA and into the system, could have potentially hurt a lot of people. There happened to be, a veteran guy who knew the recipe was like, whoa, that's not right, and caught it before it happened. But there's a lot of danger in it. Not getting gas is an inconvenience initially, can be dangerous eventually, because emergency services can't do what they need to do. But messing with water systems or nuclear or whatever has some pretty immediate impact.
Yeah. Scary stuff.
Yep. Things like infrastructure, supply chain, those kinds of things are all targets these days, unfortunately. But
yep. Leslie weighing in on well-executed graphic representation of data is a beautiful thing. It absolutely is. I love data visualized well. Even in some cases, if it's eye candy, right? It's like, okay, that doesn't really tell me anything, but it sure is pretty.
Yep. Well, hopefully it just helps tell the story. You can look at a bunch of data and not know what it means. Hopefully the graphs and the images help explain what it means.
Yep.
Totally.
We got 3 down, fellas. I think we're heading into the home stretch with number
2.
Alrighty, so my second one that I'm contributing this week is a contribution again on Crowdsource on community.f5.com. Now, Jai Kumar is actually an MVP on the platform. The one that I showed everybody before from Pedro, he's not an MVP, but those are the behaviors that are exhibited by MVP. So I wouldn't be surprised if Pedro's considered or nominated to be an MVP next year. Now, Jai is an MVP, and he's doing MVP things by showing off his script here to export GTM and DNS virtual servers in a CSV. And I think this for me kind of struck me as, first of all, just being helpful because it helps out with documentation. But I know personally I've used scripts like these, not with F5, but I did this with a firewall for exporting objects just for documentation, because we don't always have the fanciest tools to go out and map everything on our devices so that you have that documentation kind of saved somewhere else, especially with something like, say, for virtual server objects for GTM/DNS. That kind of stuff is important when you're documenting your firewall. So you need to know, what objects you might be doing NAT rules for and whatnot. And so this kind of stuff is just, it's small, but it's really handy. Like the actual code here is 10 lines, looks like. And so to be able to get stuff off of the big IP kind of documented in a really quick, easy way, I think it's going to help out a lot of folks. So I encourage everyone to check that out, and also just kind of observe, folks like Jai and the things that they do as MVPs to contribute back to the community. Folks like Pedro, those types of contributions are awesome. We talked about having, or we joked about the prize patrol, but part of the MVPs, we definitely want to reward them with all the swag that we can get them as well at the beginning of the next year for their contributions for 2022. So yeah, worth checking out, and worth kind of thinking about what you might have hiding in your back pocket that you can contribute to the community and be considered for MVP yourself.
Yeah, I love automation. I love it when people share their automation tools, and around that, if you have been on the platform for years and you're familiar with CodeShare, on the new platform at community.f5.com, if you're not a member yet, go join. We have a section called Crowdsource, and that is enveloped not just CodeShare, traditional CodeShare, where you just share your code samples, but also article type things to where you want to share, hey, I found this new database key that I didn't know about, and it does XYZ, and I wanted to share my use of that, and whatever. So it can be F5 related. It could also be, hey, I learned this new thing in Python. I think this might help you with the automation tool sets that you're building, or Jinja 2 templating, or YAML, or HashiCorp configuration language, whatever. All the tools that are around the things that we do that can be helpful to the community, you can share in there as an article. All of that goes through review. In Crowdsource, it goes through a review just to make sure you're following community standards. We don't change the rightness of your content or whatever. That's for the community to gain wisdom from, but we're not vetting it from a standpoint of accuracy. It's just we're vetting it for following our community standards. Within the technical articles, we do vet that content a little bit more strictly. Most of that comes from our F5 employees, whether they're solutions engineers or architects or whatever, or us as well. So you'll find all of the community content in Crowdsource, and there is a suggestion out there for us to maybe make that a little bit more clear, shake that up. So if you want to weigh in on that discussion, go to suggestions on DevCentral. If you're not a member yet, join, and then you can add your commentary on whether or not that you think CodeShare should return as a name and how we ought to organize that. So Kevin Davies, one of our MVPs, posted the suggestion. You can weigh in with commentary, and we will be reviewing that over the coming weeks.
Crowdsource the CodeShare name.
That's
pretty
right.
Cool. Wasn't there also a series? I know Boo mentioned that snippet was like 9 lines. I believe there's also a series out there called like 10 lines or less or something, if I'm not mistaken, or we had it for a little while.
Less, yeah.
20 lines or less. Okay.
20 lines or less. That was mostly a iRules series. Although when Colin left the DevCentral team and I took over that series for a while, I did throw some iControl stuff in there as well. So not exclusively iRules, but it's mostly iRules. And that's a fun series. If you haven't checked that out, all of the code from that is out on GitHub under the F5 DevCentral organization in the iRules toolbox. It's in a folder aptly named 20 lines or less. So,
wait.
Yep. All right. Should we wrap this thing up with number 1?
All right.
Take us out, Boo.
Ooh.
Take us to the chorus.
Number 1.
I'm not Boo, but I do have the number 1 slot this week. And I'm at Agility last week. I attended this session on modern reference architecture. So it's a modern application reference architectures. They're calling it Nginx Mara. And the cool thing with this is it's already out there on GitHub. You can go download it. In fact, I have that in the comments here. Let me just go ahead and push that now. There it is. And this thing's super cool. They built an entire, I guess I have to go to the actual tab. They built an entire application deployment, not just, hey, I built this thing in Python Flask or Django, or I built this thing in PHP. The whole deployment is there with infrastructure, telemetry, dashboarding, database, and you can put this thing on a virtual machine on your own laptop. I think it's like a 12 gig Ubuntu instance with 2 CPUs is how they they designed it. You can put it out in AWS or Google or whatever, but this is just a project you can fork, you can build, you can bring in pieces, swap out pieces. But really, even if it's not something that you would use in production, it's a fantastic learning tool. Boo was mentioning lab environment for Advanced WAF at the top of the show. This is perfect for learning a lot of tools in one place. And for one of the comments we got back at Agility about the automation tool chain last week was, hey, I'm learning Terraform, and I'm learning declarative onboarding. I'm learning AS3 and telemetry services and all these little tools, but I'm learning about them in a vacuum. And so I have these little pieces I learn, and then I learn about maybe VMware, or I learn about AWS, but it's kind of confusing how I put all the pieces together. In this case, Nginx has a soup to nuts solution that you can deploy and pick apart and look at all the code, see how all the pieces fit. And for the core in March, third Tuesday of March at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, we're going to dive into this thing. And so you'll want to join me for that show. But that is, my selection for the month.
That's a cool one. So are you going to build it, Jason, or are you just going to have it baked and then kind of walk through?
I think they said it takes about 20 minutes for it to build, so I will probably build it ahead of time. But I might take I know you've shown some walkthroughs, and Eric Chen has shown some walkthroughs where you kind of time lapse some of the work so that you can kind of walk through. And so I may do a little bit of that.
Yeah, cool.
Because I think it would take the whole show to build it. So.
I always love the time lapse of them changing from the hockey rink to the basketball floor in a arena at the best stuff. So I say, hit it with that time lapse, Jason.
Yep. All right. Real quick, I got a comment here from Josh. If I had a pick, it would be the Journeys tool. So don't stop believing.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's a good one. There were 3 sessions on the Journeys tool that built upon each other last week. So if you didn't register for Agility, you can still go register so that you can get access to the content after the fact. Highly recommend you do that because there are some fantastic sessions. Several of the keynotes were also very good. So you want to go out and do that. And just insider look, I'd reached out to Josh to see if he wanted to join us on the top 5 today, and just long weekend, and I was away and he was away, and it didn't work out. But if he was on the show, that would have been his pick for the month. So good to know, Josh, and that was a fantastic choice. So that bears fruit to where maybe we'll ask you back again.
We should definitely have him on.
Absolutely.
So we're pretty much pegged for today. What do we got coming up Thursday? I know I did a promo for something called the F5 Distributed Cloud Web Application and API Protection. Is that right, fellas?
It definitely is.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be joined by Chaz Leslie for that one. Chaz is a solutions architect covering the distributed cloud stuff, and WAP has been his baby. I know he's talked a lot about it internally at F5, kind of gotten a lot of folks up to speed on that. So he's going to get the community up to speed on that on Thursday.
Cool. And then you got the first Tuesday of the month right after that, don't you, Boo?
Yeah. So again, I will be on Tuesday. So this is building your first customer edge. So this is actually kind of a follow on. If folks have been following some of the content I've put together for the DevCentral YouTube channel and one of the articles that I did recently as well, I got my home lab that I'm refreshing. We've got all these new distributed cloud pieces as well. So I've published a video on getting the VMware up and running on the lab. And so the next piece that I want to run everybody through is the customer edge for distributed cloud. And so we'll talk through what that looks like. Just do like a really basic, hey, how do I get a container running on customer edge, and how do I build that customer edge in the first place, what that process looks like. That one will have that will involve a little bit of time lapse on there. So I'll figure out, how much we'll actually do clickety clicks for, and then how much we'll actually just show what the final product is. But hopefully by the end of that, it's a little bit of how you'll be able to get an edge up and running and run a container on it.
That's cool. I vote clickety clicks.
Yep.
If I have a vote.
Clickety click, clickety click. You got to think of a song for that one. I was trying to think of the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang song, but I don't know if clickety click would work with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. But for you youngsters, look it up. Google Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and you'll know what I'm talking about. And with that, we appreciate you coming on. If you enjoyed this content today, please consider smashing that like button, hitting the subscribe, along with notifications so you know when we will be coming on again. We also just released a number of distributed cloud videos over the last few days covering DDoS and API protection and bot defense and all those kinds of things. So check that out on the channel. Anything else you want to say before we go, fellas?
Just enjoyed hearing your guys' picks for the month of February. Look forward to what we'll have to share at the end of microservices month in March. Yep. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. For Jason, for Boo, I'm Peter, and we're with F5. Thanks for watching. This week on DevCentral Connects. 1, 2, relax, get to it. When you want to secure it, relax, get to it, make them want to run. Join Jason and Boo Thursday, February 24th, 9:30 a.m. to discover the new F5 distributed cloud web application and API protection solution, the F5 distributed cloud WAP. Come learn how you can deliver security policies across clouds, down to your edge, and even on-prem consistently, securely, and simply. Thursday, February 24th, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Link in the description sets your reminder. DevCentral Connects is live every Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Relax, get to it!